Hello, in this lesson I'll give you some concepts of computer programs. Things like writing some codes, what are programs, what are commands, and how to use the Visual Studio integrated development environment. So let's start from the most important questions when you are new in programming. What is this? What is to program? So to program means to give commands to the computer and tell the computer, please do something, please enter some data, or please do some calculation, or print something, or take something and move it to another locations, things like that. So this is an example of simple command. Console.writeLine, and in brackets we give some text. The console is some kind of object and a write line is some kind of action. So we ask the computer, please write on the console this line holding this text. We'll learn a little bit more about commands later, but now just take this as an example. So commands are lined up one after another. We can give a group of commands, sequences of commands to the computer, and this is how they form a computer program. A computer program is just first step, do this, second step, do this, third step, do this. So it's a sequence of lined up one after another commands. It's called computer program or script, or there are many words to say it. So computer program is a sequence of commands. It's also called algorithm. If we have a sequence of commands that achieve some result, we call it algorithm. For example, we can have an algorithm to find the square root of given integer number, which consists of many steps which are done one after another to achieve this result. Programs are written in some programming language, a language like C#, like Java, like JavaScript, like Python, PHP, C, C++, Swift, Go, Rust, and many other languages. Languages are a way to express the commands we want to give to the computer. So we can run this program, this simple command, here in an online tool called RepoIt. So this is our command. The command is put into a program. This is the command. It's put into a program, and we will learn a little bit more about this later. But now we can press the run button and the command is executed. When we run this command, it says, please console.print. This is the console. This black window is called console. So let's get back here in our lesson. Computer programs may consist of several commands aligned one after another. For example, this is a program of 3 commands. The first says, please give remember into variable called size the number 5. Later, print this size as a text and the size as a value. Later, print area and then multiply the size by size and print the entire result. The output of this program is something like size is 5, area is 25, and that's all. We can run this program again on this tool called RepoIt, which is just an online development environment which supports C#. And if we run it, we'll see that the size is 5. This line prints this text, and this line of code or command prints this text. So programming is a sequence of is about writing programs which are essentially sequences of C# commands or commands in another language. So programming sometimes involves some other steps additional to just the commands. For example, in the C# language, we need to define a class, to define a method, and to define the commands inside this method. So a C# program usually starts with some things like using system, which just includes the system namespace. This is something like a library with very commands which we use very often. And then we define the class, which starts here and ends here. and in it we define this public static void main, and we start and end it here. So assume that all this here is always part of our program. We cannot write C# program with a single line of code. We need to put this code inside. So the actual commands, the first command, the second command, and the third command, these commands are put inside this block, inside this main, it's called method, inside the main method. So the entire program looks like this. Did you see that we have 3 commands here, but they are wrapped into some other additional things? Something like when you purchase a mobile phone, it comes with a cover, it comes with some additional instructions, with some book, with some additional things around it. But essentially, it's the phone, mobile phone, in the this is what you purchase. So similarly, when you write C# programs, you put your code here, but it's wrapped into some cover, into some package. Okay. So when we program and when we write code, we use a programming language, and we often use either a compiler or interpreter. So the programming language defines a set of rows. It defines the syntax. Syntax is the rules that we follow when we write commands. For example, in this language, C#, at the end of each command, we put semicolon. And this comes from the syntax of the C# language. If we write some other language, this might be different. So languages are either compiled, like C#, C++, C, Pascal, and many other languages, or interpreted, which means that they are directly executed, like JavaScript, like Python, and like TypeScript, and many other scripting languages. The compiler, it's a computer program which transforms the programming code or the so-called source code to machine code. So we have programming code, the source code of our program, and machine code, which is a code understandable for the computer. And during the compilation, the compiler finds the syntax errors in the code, finds the problems, and alarms us if we have problems. The interpreters runs differently. They execute directly the code line by line. For example, they just say, see the line, read it, and execute it. It finds the syntax error during the runtime, not directly before that, like the compiler. And I can illustrate all this using the Visual Studio Integrated Development Environment. So what is IDE, Integrated Development Environment? This is a program for writing programs. For example, if you are familiar with Microsoft Word, it's a program for writing articles, for writing some papers, for writing some books, or this is a program for writing text. In IDE, Integrated Development Environments, are programs for writing programs. This is the program inside this program. Okay, the IDE saves at times and eases the process of coding because it's integrated. You can write the code, you can run it, you can test it, you can trace it if it has some bugs or problems. You can design user interface, and you can do many other things. So for programming in C#, we usually use the Visual Studio IDE. This is the name of the program. Like when we use electronic tables, we might use Excel or OpenOffice Calc. Alternatives to Visual Studio for coding in C# are the program MonoDevelop and the Rider. Rider is cross-platform, very powerful, but it's paid too. Very nice IDE for C#. So try coding, but before that I will show you Visual Studio. So I have it open already, and it consists of something like this. This is my Solution Explorer. It holds my program and its pieces, its parts. So the program defines a class program, and we have public static void main, and we have some commands. I'll start with some very simple program. Console.write when the result complete, and I say please write when hello. If I want to execute, to run this program, I press Ctrl plus F5. So this one, and it says hello, and it says our program is finished, please press some key to continue. This is the IDE, this is the Visual Studio. I can write a sequence of commands. For example, I can write console.write line, a second command for me, write line, how are you? It will print how are you. So I have a program consisting of two different commands. Okay, and I can write another text, for example, welcome to C#. And now I have three commands: first command, second command, third command, and when I click Ctrl F5, this is what I achieve. If I take the other program here, it will be, I can copy it, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. It will say that I remember in the size the number 5. Later I print size and 5. Later I print this text area equals to, and then I calculate this expression size by size, multiply it, and print the result. So the result will be size is 5 and area is 25. This is a simple program of 3 commands, and I can even execute it one by one like this. I click F10, and now I'm here, F10, size is 5. Now I print the size, Alt tab, I press Alt tab, it says what is currently shown by this command. I execute the next command pressing F10, and the result is printed on the console. And finally the program stops. So this is what we have in the IDE, integrated development environment. We can write code, you can navigate through the program pieces or classes, components, etc. And we can run the program with Ctrl F5, and we can trace the program pressing F10 and F10 many times. So this language called C#, which we use for our programs here, is running by a compiler which transforms the programming code into machine code. There is a compilation. When we press F6, it's built. This is the compilation, compile. Okay, if we have some wrong command here, and if we build it with F6, it will be, the problem will be found during the compilation. This compilation says that we have some problem. So, but if we use interpreter, like for example, if we have a web browser, we press F12, and we go here at the console, we can just say size is 5, and it says, yes, I agree, the size is 5, thank you, I understand you. And now I can say console.walk, please print the size, and it says 5. Please print the size multiplied by size, and it will print 25. This is an interpreter. This is the JavaScript languages interpreter. Okay, it's incorrect command, of course, and it says a problem. So in resume, we found what are programming, writing commands, what is a computer program, a sequence of commands. We need a programming language like C# and JavaScript to write programs. This is a simple program, but this is not the entire program. These are only the commands. This is an entire program which consists of the using of the class definition, method definitions, and the commands inside. And for writing programs, we need a programming language, which might be compiler based or interpreter based. Compiler based languages are C#, for example. This is a compiler based language, and we have a compilation. And interpreter based, like JavaScript. And this is the example, this console, which comes from our web browser when we press F12. Okay, so IDEs are tools for writing commands, and try this, run Visual Studio, write this command, stop on the video, on the pause, and try to run these codes, because learning programming is done by coding, by doing, not by listening. Hello, in this lesson I will show you how to write your first console application in Visual Studio. It will be a simple Hello World or Hello C# program, but we will pass through all the steps, starting Visual Studio, creating a project, writing the code, running the code, and finally submitting your code in the judge system, where it will tell you whether it is correct or not. So let's start. First, when we want to create a console application in Visual Studio, we should start Visual Studio. I already have it started, so this is what I have. I will close this solution to be to start from the scratch, from the zero. Okay, so the next step is to say File, New, Console Application, and choose this Windows console application. I will show you this live. So I press File, New, Project, File, New Project. See, File, New Project in Microsoft Visual Studio. File, New Project, and in this dialog window I choose Visual C# and Console App.NET Core, or this will also work, .NET Framework. These are the two variants of .NET, but the latest is .NET Core. So I press this. I use the allocation C projects. Usually I use for my projects, and console app, for example, example February. Because I have many examples, that's why I choose unique name. So next, Visual Studio will create this project for me. Here at the Solution Explorer, I have a solution. In this solution, I have a project, and in the project, I have one file. In this file, I have this code. It's called program.cs. And this is my program. It says Hello World. I can change it to Hello C# and press Ctrl F5. So it's a program which just prints Hello C#. I can add another command with CW tap. This is the shortcut for console write line. I can print welcome, for example. So I will have two lines, Hello C#, the first, and the second, welcome, and that's all I have. So this is my program, and I run it with Ctrl F5. I can run it step by step with F10, again F10, Alt Tab. This is what I have here, and I can press F10 again to run this yellow line. It executes the next command and prints its result. And if I run F10 again, the program will finish. So this is how I create program. This is the place where my program is. It's called Hello C#, and this is the program. So sometimes in the different versions of Visual Studio, you may have different things here and different files here. For example, we don't have app.config in my Visual Studio. And also this one is something which are some libraries which are injected in our code, but here we have only using system. So if you use different or later version of Visual Studio, things may be slightly changed. Okay, so we write the code here. Where, for example, if this is the code, we go here after the bracket and we write our program here. Okay, if we write the code a different place, for example, If I write console write one here, it will not compile. It will say, ah, you have errors, you have invalid tokens, build errors, things like that. Why? Because the command is outside of the place where it should be. It should be here. You have namespace, in it you have class, in it you have static void main. The namespace is not obligatory, so we can delete this and this one, and we can select this and press Shift Tab to move it on the left, and it will work again. But all the rest is obligatory. For example, this one is obligatory, otherwise the program will not compile. Okay, this one is not also required, so the shortest version of this program is this. Hello is with double L. Wow. Okay, so what's indentation? Indentation means that if you have several commands, they should be on the same indentation level here. Here, the space here and here should be the same, because these are the same commands. But if we have something like a for loop with from 0 to 10, from 1 to 10, for example, the commands which are inside the block are indented, which means that if this one is inside this one, it should be moved on the right. If this one, this code, is inside this, it should be moved on the right. I believe you will understand the idea. The idea is that we want to make the code readable. So if we want to execute a piece of commands here, they will be moved on the right. And it's clearly visible that this code stays inside this for loop here. If we don't use indentation, this code is quite unreadable. For example, if I forget this bracket, is it visible which bracket is forgotten? No, it's not, because it's broken code. But if I do it right now, it's clearly visible that this bracket does not, it's corresponding, because brackets always stay vertically one under another. See, this is the concept of indentation. Okay, so writing the command, we have done this several times. We can use autocomplete. If we say con, the autocompleter will say, oh, do you mean console? I say yes. Control space starts this autocomplete. I press enter and it completes the console. When I press dot, it will try to offer the next word I want to type. So if I say write, it will offer write or write one. With the arrows I can change. So I choose write one, enter, now a bracket and semicolon. All the operators in C#, all the statements in C# commands, they should finish with semicolon. So I press if I want to print some text, hello C#, for example, I need to put it in brackets. And when I press Ctrl F5, the program runs. If I forgot this, forgot this, it will not work. See, because it's text. Text should be encapsulated like this, or with apostrophes, or with quotes, like this. So not all programs are correct. If your program is correct, it may be started. It will be compiled successfully. If your program is not correct, it will not start. So this is how we write the command. I already did this, and I run it through Ctrl F5. Ctrl F5 will show the result, and after that we'll show this one. Please press any key. Any key means any key, maybe the space, the enter, the escape, or some other. Okay. If we run this one, the green, it will also run the program if we press it, but the program output will disappear because it's printed here and immediately the window is closed. That's why we want here start without debugging, which is Control F5. Debug, start without debugging, and now after the finishing of the program, its window is still not closed. We have time to see what happened. The next thing is to get familiar with the judge system. The judge system at SoftUni is an automated place where you can run your programs and you can get feedback whether they are correct or not. So you have a link, this link, which means judge SoftUni BG or softuni.org, and we have this contest, and in this contest we have several problems. First problem, several, second, third problem. And when we send the problems, we will be able to evaluate our solutions automatically. What I mean? So let's open this. I will close some of the tabs to enable you to see what happens. So I have this contest. It's a contest, programming basics book, C# book. All the problems from this book and this training course are here. So for the first section or first topic or first chapter, first steps in programming, this clearly corresponds to, let me just show you, to this one. Okay, so our book has chapters. In each chapters has a judge. You have one judge contest here, one judge contest here, etc. So we are here now. And when we go in the judge, we press practice. In order to use the judge, you need to log in. Okay, I will log in with some account, or you need to register here. Okay, you just need to select username, password, country and email, standard registration, or you can just click Facebook registration, log in with Facebook or with Google. So when you have an account, you can log in, for example, this one, and you can send your code here. I can put your code here, my code here, and I submitted it for evaluation. If I refresh, it says compile time error, which means that this program is incorrect, which is the truth. If I want to submit this program, I copy it, Control A, which means select all, then copy, Control C, then Alt Tab, then I click here, I say paste or Control V, and this is my program. And I can say, please submit this program for this Hello C#. Submit, and I press refresh after a few seconds, and the judge will say, oh, it's correct, you have 100 out of 100 points. So you are done with this problem. I can use the next problem and submit some solution, and if this solution is correct, the judge will tell me, thank you, it's correct. Now the solution will be incorrect. I have a program which compiles successfully, but it's incorrect. It has zero correct output, produces zero correct output. So why? Because it's different problem with the same solution. Maybe each problem should have different solution. So this is what I wanted to show you, that we have this SoftUni judge. You can explore it. There is a video how it works. It supports many languages like C#, like Java, like JavaScript, like PHP, Python, and many others. And you can use this navigation, programming basics and programming basics books, because we have many other contents, and we are here at the C# book. So These are the problems for this first chapter, for the second chapter, for the third chapter, etc., etc., etc. Or if you are watching video training, so know that we are here. You have the direct link, so I can press practice, which is the same like clicking here. It is the same location. See, I need to press practice. So this and this is the same thing, and here I can put the my solution. If I just print hello without C#, it will say that my solution is incorrect. I submitted this solution, and now I press refresh, 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 and it says, oh, incorrect. I can ask for details, and it will tell me, oh, you need to produce expected output is hello C#, but your output is just hello without C#. Obviously, we have incorrect solution. So this is how the judge works, and I highly recommend that when you solve your problems, just to check them in the judge. So try yourself. Install Visual Studio, run it, create a console application, write your code here, hello console write line hello C#, and finally run it with Ctrl F5, ensure it works correctly, and finally click in the judge. I already showed how to find this contest and submit it in order to see that it really works correctly. So try it yourself again. Don't listen and watch videos. It's many times better that you write code, that you run code, that you do it with your hands. This is how the programming can be learned. Try it.
Okay, now we'll start with the programming part of things. First, we'll start with learning how to read numbers from the terminal. If you followed along in the previous videos of this course, you already know how to do this, or you've seen how to do it. But now we're going to a bit more details, how it works, how to do it properly. Basically, if you want to read a number from the terminal, you have some functions to do it, and you can find them in this line here. First, you create something called a variable, and about variables we'll talk a bit later. Then you write in .parse brackets and something you put inside. We'll go through this in these lines in details, but basically that's how you read a number, and let's just go into a bit more details here in Visual Studio this time. Now, what I've done is I just created a new project, and that's it. Now, before I start anything, I have to clean it up a bit by removing the things which are not necessary. For example, I remove these using directives here. The namespace is not important for the programs we're making. The class should be called simple calculations demo, for example. This is the main functions, and by the way, we don't need this. And here we can rename this to simple calculations demo. Okay, cool. Now let's start. Well, how do we read the number? Well, the first thing we gotta have is a place where we put this number. The way we do that is by declaring a variable. A variable we declare in the following way for now. Okay, in the next videos you will study this in a bit more detail, but we write var, then we write a name, an identifier for our variable. Basically the identifier is there to just name, so we have some storage somewhere, and we have to reference this storage in some way. So instead of referencing it by address, like some arbitrary number which came up, we can reference it by name. So we gotta give this thing a name, and I'll call it number. Now I write the equal sign. The equal sign means I want to assign the thing which you find on the right to the variable on the left, okay, or the thing we find on the left. Basically, you can imagine that now what you have is an open box. You have a box which is empty, and it's now time to fill it. and the equal sign says, look, I want you to get whatever you have here and put it inside the box, and I want to reference it later. That is, I want to be able to use it later for whatever I find necessary. Okay? Now, moving on. The first thing we gotta do is we have to read something from the user. Well, how do we read something from the user? Basically, for different applications, reading input happens in a different way. For example, if you are writing a graphical application, you would read input from the user by reading some text boxes he has to fill. You've already seen that in previous videos. If you want to write a web application, what you have to do is you have to give some form for the user to fill in, or some buttons to click. Okay? But currently we're writing a terminal application, a console application. And in console applications, the way we read anything from the terminal is by reading as a line of text which the user inputs. Okay? I'll show it right here. Before we continue here, I'll just comment this. This is something we've not talked about, but if you put this forward slashes, it means that you are commenting out the lines. A comment is something which doesn't get into account in your program. It's not something which the compiler cares about. It's something it ignores. The comment normally is there to just, for example, provide some documentation, like saying what you're doing here or something like that. And it can be used for just temporarily ignoring some line, like I'm doing here. Because now I don't want to delete the whole line, because I will write it out anyways at one point. So I'm just commenting it out so that I ignore it for now, and later I'll get back to it. Okay? Now, I made my comment here, and now I write an instruction which allows me to read something from the terminal. So how do I do that? Well, first, since we're reading something from the terminal or the console, what we have to do is we have to use the toolbox, the tool actually which provides us utilities from reading the terminal. Okay? And that is called console. Console is a class. It's a class found in some library we're using. To be more particular, it's a class found in this library called system. Okay? And if you're just curious what this using system is, where does it come from? Well, basically a library is something which is packed in some format and it's stored somewhere, and I will show it to you. If I go to C, Windows, and I write system.dll, at one point, if I'm lucky enough, this will find a file called system.dll. System.dll is just a file in some format, okay? But this file actually can be included. It can be included in your applications and used. And if you don't have this file, you won't be able to use it. So if you want to include, for example, some utilities I give you as a friend of yours, I'll have to send you a file which you have to include in your project. And if you want to use system.dll, which is a library which provides us the console utility, we have to find it first. We have to have it on our system. And luckily, system is something which comes by default in Windows. So you can just find it, and it's normally stored somewhere in the Windows directory. And here I'll hopefully find it. There are a lot of system things. Well, it's a bit harder since there are a lot of things. And I just want to find system.dll. Isn't that so simple? Okay, but anyways, look at this. Cool. So we have system.collections, okay? .ni, but ignore this ni. I'm not sure what it stands for, to be honest. let's take something like, okay, system.design. So we want to include system.design, and we go here and say using system.design. It doesn't find it now because we have to reference it, okay? In order to, but look, it has system.data, okay? System.data we can find and write system.data.dol. If I'm lucky enough for this to find it fast, yes, there it is. You have system.data.dol. It's basically a file which we include in our project. This is something I'm showing just to be aware of the magic which happens behind the scenes. But that's how we find toolboxes. So we have this toolbox called system. It's somewhere in our Windows directory. The project knows where to find it, and now we can use the tool called console from it. Okay. Now console is a class. Basically, a class is the analog of a tool in the real world. Okay. And if I want to use something from this tool, some functionality, for example, if I have a screwdriver and I want to use it to make a hole in the wall, if you can use it for that, then what you have to write is the name of the class, screwdriver, dot, and the name of the method which you wanna utilize. For example, I might find a method called make hole in wall or something like that. Now, we're not going to make holes in the wall this time, but we're going to write something on the terminal. And so we can use the tool called console and then invoke a method called readLine. ReadLine is a method which reads a line from the terminal. This is the command I want to write, and now I click semicolon. Okay? And that's it. Now, if I run this program, notice how the program paused. There's this blinking cursor there, and it doesn't move, it doesn't do anything. This doesn't mean it glitched or anything, it means that it's waiting for input. That's how you get input from the user, and now I can type in some stuff, and this text here is the thing which my program will read. Okay? This is something the program will be able to read and work with. Okay, so if I click enter now, the program exited. The reason it exited is because we read something from the terminal, but it didn't use it for anything, so the program just ended. Okay, now let's use it. Let's write var text equals this. This means, look, I want you to make a box, and I want you to put the contents of the thing you read in the box. And after you put it there, I want you to write it out again on the terminal. So I write console.writeLine. This is the utility for writing text on the terminal. But in order to write text on the terminal, you gotta give it some parameters. You gotta tell him what to write. So between these brackets here of any method, we input some data. We input how we want to use this function, how we want to use this method. Okay? And why do we input these parameters? Well, because some functionalities we want to use are good enough to just work on their own without any external input. For example, if I invoke the function read a line from the terminal, it doesn't need any other info. So I can just leave the brackets empty. But there are methods which expect something, which want you to input something. And one of these functions is console.writeLine. This is not mandatory, actually, it's optional. If you don't input anything inside these brackets, it's just going to print out an empty line. I can actually show it to you. If I write some text, notice this empty line here. Okay? That's the empty line we actually output. But if you want to output some text, now this has to take some parameters. A parameter is something we input between these brackets. The way we input parameters is by separating them by a colon, right? So if I want to, let's say, if I have, for example, my a remote control. So I have remote control, I write dot, and okay, I'll just go here, it's easier. So I have remote control dot, and now I want to invoke some method. Okay, I want to invoke a method of this remote control, so I write set volume. It's a functionality which sets the volume to a given thing. Imagine now that this utility, in order for it to work, you first have to specify a target. That is, what do you want to set the volume of? Would you like to set the volume of your TV, of your stereo, of your car, or something else? So you gotta provide that parameter. So how do you provide them? Well, you write some brackets, and inside the brackets you provide the parameters, and in the end you write a semicolon. How do you enumerate these parameters? Well, you start writing the input. For example, if I want it to work on my car,